Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. And obviously, if you don't know me by now, you should go to therudedogshow.com. But more importantly, the guy you should really know is the gentleman next to me, not literally, but virtually next to me, as we're experiencing virtuality throughout these throughout these times right now. And of course, the NFL kicks off the Tampa Bay in day two, the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're being visited by the Kansas City Chiefs, AFC champions. But of course, none more important right now, unless you're talking to Mike Dempsey. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. I've heard nothing but fantastic things to say about you. And if somebody told me otherwise, I wouldn't believe it.
Don't believe all the hype you hear, man, but it's all good. A pleasure to be here with you tonight. And yep, here in Tampa I was on Radio Row all day today. It was a little different than the usual Super Bowl Radio Row madness, but look, I'm grateful we're even having a game and a week, Super Bowl week, given the way the world's been for the last 10 months. So
yeah, very, very interesting. And I'm here in the Central Valley, California, born and raised Southern California. Next year, Super Bowl will be in Los Angeles, so I'm very excited to go to that one. I will be attending that one. There's no question. I will be attending.
I'll be there too, man. LA. I already got plans for next year's Super Bowl. Actually, we're planning a very cool NFL alumni event. USA Today is going to be sponsoring it, and San Diego Chargers are involved in it. That's all I'll tell you about it, and we'll kind of build it up till next year. But I'm looking forward to Los Angeles next year.
Sounds good. So I guess you can believe the hype in that. So if you guys aren't attuned to that one, you should really go check that out.
Oh yeah.
When we're talking about surviving things, and of course this time that we're in certainly begs a question as to how much of a mortality rate are we going to have, and your rate of being able to go through what you went through between the 9/11 attacks, between the mass shootings in Vegas. Now look, and this is where I fit into the whole equation, is that I was born on 9/11. I'm a twin. So okay. I've had the double dose of, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, or, oh my, I can't believe it, or, there's some type of anomaly as to 9/11. How did that happen in New York City to where you survived 9/11 altogether?
I'll connect the dots back to why we're here this week. It's Super Bowl, and here in Tampa, I graduated college playing Division III football. Lost my chance at Division I from an injury, but I got to play Division III ball up in Albany. And I was, because I transferred schools, as you know, when you transfer schools, you lose credits. And I was stuck up in Albany the last summer. Instead of graduating on time, I had to take some extra classes to finish off that summer, not knowing what I wanted to do. Hadn't figured that out at that point yet. And the Albany Firebirds arena football team were practicing at SUNY Albany Field over there. And I got to thankfully get a kind of an opportunity to join. I was excited. And like arena football, different indoor, on turf. Turf part is what messed me up, because 3 weeks later, non-contact injury, blew out my ACL, meniscus, bam. Devastating. One of those kind of things that, you shouldn't happen, but it did happen. But I still was hanging on by a thread to this dream of playing football, thinking, and obviously a guy named Wayne Corbett, who I played against Hofstra, where he played, Wayne made the Jets a couple of years later. I was hoping before that I was going to have that opportunity to live the dream, and was looking at the CFL. Calgary shut their door on me. So I'm like, well, I'm not going up north and getting all that kind of Canadian weather up there. Jeff Garcia, ironically, I'd met up there when I was up there visiting. Ran into him last year. I still remembered me, which is an amazing memory for a guy who's traveled so many years, California, San Francisco 49ers, and I had a great time reliving that kind of week I was up there. But then in Tampa Bay, this 1995, Sam Weiss was the coach, Jerry Angelo, the general manager, got an opportunity as a, tryout kind of deal. Unfortunately, didn't pass the physical. So they're kind of crushed my NFL dreams. I don't even think I even had a cup of coffee. I don't even call it a cup of coffee. The coffee was just not even getting to but the cool thing about it, and this is where I connected dots on so I joined. Obviously, two things happened. Yankees moved their spring training from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa the following year. So I got to do some work or get some introductions to the Yankees. But the bigger thing for me was a Wall Street firm called Solomon Brothers. If you remember a book called Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis, well, that firm had moved or relocated a lot of their operations down to Tampa, geographically dispersed from New York a couple of years earlier. So I got my first opportunity through networks at a Wall Street powerhouse firm. And a couple of years later, relocated back up to New York. And you can tell by the accent, I'm living in North Carolina, but I got a Brooklyn accent. I can't fake that. I'm back home again with my family, with my wife, and we're back in New York and living in Long Island. Now I'm working for, fast forward to September 2001, working for Credit Suisse First Boston, 5 World Trade Center, top floor. And as people may not know, there are 7 buildings in the World Trade Center. So most people say, oh, we're in the Twin Towers. Well, not exactly. I mean, 5 was connected to 1. So when that plane, and the other story, cool, the night before, was that the Yankee game probably spared my wife, right? Because September 10th, 2001, Roger Clemens is going for his 20th win as a Yankee. And we're at the stadium, and it's a 2.5-hour rain delay, which never happens, right? Rain delays usually you call a game off at like 7 o'clock. They look at the weather forecast, umpires. Right. This game got called off at like 9:45, 10 o'clock. I remember it was the longest rain delay I'd ever seen. I remember Joe Torre being on the field, and I always tell him the story, because it was he was an angel, I guess, because that game got called off very late. Missed our train. We were Penn Station. For any New Yorkers that listen to the show, they'll realize that, when you're in the Bronx and you got to connect to Penn Station and get back to Long Island, it's a whole train, subway to Long Island Railroad process. And what happened there was we missed the train and got home past midnight. And I was up early the next day, made it to the World Trade Center, my usual commute, but my wife was late. And being late, as you've heard a lot of these stories, of 9/11 saved her life. So I'm in the World Trade Center that morning. Tuesday morning, checking out World Wrestling Federation results, Monday Night Raw, Kurt Angle. I always remember this. What were you doing when the World Trade Center got hit? I was looking at internet surfing, not doing my job. And all of a sudden, the building kind of shook. And when I looked out my boss's window, it looked like, and now we didn't know a plane hit. We didn't have TVs, and we didn't see what you saw on TV. But looked out the window outside, and the building kind of, looked like it was a bomb or something from underneath. People looking at our building, not the tower. The evacuation was pretty orderly. I got to say, we got down right away, but I had to go. Everybody else got out on DC Street, which was where the World Trade Center, the other side of where that happened. But for me, going into One World Trade Center lobby to look for my wife, who would have been on the 100th floor of Tower 1 working for Marsh McLennan, I took a different path. And when I got there, probably a little bit before 9 o'clock, the glass was blown out in the elevators. Still no plane hit the building. That was not something you would ever think could ever happen. So went out. I couldn't get a cell phone connection. Cell phones are pretty new back in that, at least for me, I wasn't tech savvy. Mm-hmm. Wasn't getting a connection. We know why. But I went out through the mall of the World Trade Center, out a store called Sam Goody, a record store. When we had records back in the old days, we used to get CDs and records. My kids don't remember that stuff, but we do.
I do.
Yep. But as I got outside to try to use my phone to get a connection, that's when the second plane barreled into 2 World Trade Center. I was literally right under it. Got knocked out, got knocked unconscious, and don't remember anything until I was basically in City Hall Park, 3 blocks away. Don't know how I got there. Was taken to NYU downtown, Beekman, which was about 3 or 4 blocks from the World Trade Center. I was in an outdoor triage where they had set up for people like me that were injured, and they were expecting a lot more people, which of course never happened. But the scariest thing that morning, honestly, besides having a fractured skull, internal bleeding, was when the second tower collapsed. The Tower 2 came down first, and that debris cloud came toward the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, I was outdoors in this triage, and the doctors and nurses were inside, and me and some other victims or injury victims were outside. So just think about being there, and all of a sudden you hear this big, when you see on TV that debris cloud coming toward you, but you could hear it, but you don't know where it's coming from. Within minutes, you're blind, can't see. Mm-hmm. And I had just had LASIK surgery like about a month earlier. And my whole thing was, oh my God, I can't see, I'm blind. And that was probably that paralyzing fear. If there's one thing that day that scared me, because I didn't know, again, the tower was hit. I didn't have any connection to what was going on. Just the fact that I couldn't see. I thought it was a nuclear holocaust. And thinking about that movie I grew up watching The Day After, when I was a kid. And it was a pretty scary time. But that was the story with the World Trade Center. I was released. I was transferred to a hospital in Long Island 4 days later for 4 days, and I was released. And physical injuries, you get through that, but mental, you don't recover as quickly. But that's what resiliency is all about, right? So about a month later, connected with some other family members, survivors, and a lot of us were trying to figure out what to do, what the next steps in our healing were. Helped start a 9/11 charity with a friend of mine, lost his brother. And that's this group that I've been really done the most with for the last 19 and a half years. It was called the WTC United Family Group. And now it's called the September 11th Education Trust, which really focuses more on 9/11 education in classrooms, but we do a lot of peer support. And the reason I say that is Oklahoma City, you might remember April 19, 1995. Honestly, I didn't know much about it until after 9/11. They were up there, Oklahoma City, helping us 9/11 folks up in New York. Got in a car, drove up there, and were there to give us support. So we came up with the idea of having an exchange program, peer support, to bring Oklahoma City and 9/11 families together, helping our healing. We're not doctors or psychologists. And that's how it all started for me. Was that charity kind of gave me my first dose of philanthropy. So, I got the banking job, right? The sports days are behind me, but now I got this other life. I call like a double life I lead. I maybe have 3 or 4 lives, but we all have that. We all have our hustles, right? Well, I don't consider charity work a hustle, but fact is you're helping people, but I don't get paid for the charity work. But so I'm not an agent. I'm not a paid foundation member. I do what I do because I want to help others. And there's a lot of people like me out there, believe it or not. I mean, there is a good segment of us that your friends are my friend, Ryan Popke. He's another guy, does a lot of stuff on his own dime because he wants to help people, not because he's looking to make money out of it. So that's how I got involved. And I started to help out other foundations. I got connected to Cantor Fitzgerald. They lost all their employees on 9/11 in the World Trade Center. And they have a charity day that they do every year to donate and revenues from that day to different charities. So given my sports background with the football stuff, the Yankees, I started to get not just my charity involved, but other charities. And I started to kind of expand my outreach to help others. And that's been kind of the life I've led for the last 10, 15 years. But now you go forward to October 1st, 2017. And that weekend, I happened to be out in Las Vegas. I'm the guy who travels everywhere. I guess that's why these things happen to me, because I travel too much. I
don't know about that.
And I was out there because my friend Brett Raymer, who I'm going to see tomorrow at Johnny Damon's event. Brett was, he's on a TV show called Tanked on Animal Planet, 15 seasons it ran. He builds aquariums for celebrities. And I would always help Brett with stuff. But he was having an episode, filming it out there in Vegas where he was going to get engaged. And I said, you know what, my kid's got to see daddy on TV. So, you know what, I've helped Brett on a couple of episodes get like Chris Jericho and some of these Johnny Damon. I got to be on TV, man. So like I'm going out there, and I went from Cal Ripken's event. I was somewhere in Baltimore, went to another event, and then to Vegas. I don't know how I pulled it off, but I'm out there. We filmed the episode, and literally the funny story is I was only on TV for the episode in like maybe 5-10 seconds. You see me hugging him at the end of the episode, and that's it. So for all that, killed, right? I end up in Vegas. I go back to the Mandalay Bay. And crazy enough is the next morning, I got to go to Chachi's, Scott Baio's golf outing in California. So you would relate to that because I was in California. I was ready to take a flight from Vegas to LA Monday morning. And got to play in, Scott's a New York guy, and I love his event. And I actually did make it out there. But between then, Vegas that night, I'm back at the hotel visiting. I have a friend hanging out with me, and he's at the Excalibur, which is right next door to Mandalay Bay. And for some reason, I can't remember where the tram is. Like when you're in a casino, you're drinking, and you're like, there's a tram, but I have no idea which parts. So I'm like, Steve, come outside. Walk outside the front, go on Las Vegas Boulevard, just make a left and you'll get there, So that's how we ended up out by the fountains, it was almost like the pool, but you hear the water no idea that there was a concert. I had no idea what Route 91 even meant. I'm not a country music fan. I'm a Bruce Springsteen kind of guy. So I didn't hear music. I knew it was a hockey game, preseason hockey game, the earlier in the day. So no clue whatsoever how that all, but we're outside and bam, about 10, a little bit after 10 o'clock, hear the what thought was fireworks. I'm like, man, what the heck is that? Hockey game ended like 5 hours ago. And the second round of shots that the guy fired, and this is what I tell the cops, and I'm not an expert on what exactly went on that night, but I'll tell you what, he must have changed windows, because the first round to the second round was deafening. And I remember hearing that loud, like right over my head. Like then I'm thinking, and I heard somebody else sniper. And that was the point where we're running back to the hotel, not even knowing where the shots are coming from. It could have been somebody shooting at us or above us. No idea. It's easy to say, yeah, I saw it. I didn't see what was going on above me. You couldn't. There's no way you could see. You could just hear. It's like 9/11. I can't say, kind of vision I had is a different view you saw it on TV. What I saw was a whole different thing. So back at the Mandalay Bay, and I'm in lockdown the whole night. I'm at House of Blues. There's a nice restaurant there, great Cajun food, but they weren't giving us gumbo and jambalaya when I was in lockdown. That was the only disappointing thing is I'm hungry now.
What a shame. Yeah, that's not gonna work.
No, I was not a happy camper, and I'm thinking the next. I'll be honest. I mean, I got to say, this is my confessional. I'm thinking the whole night, I got to get to this golf outing. I'm gonna, I got to hang out with Chachi. I got all these cool people. I got to hang out with the next day, and that's all I kept thinking. But the crazy thing was the social media stuff was blowing up. My phone was like, oh, there's shooters. There's just crazy conspiracy theories. There was a mass thing in all the casinos. Everybody's getting shot up, and this is one of those kind of. And I had everybody has a friend that's the ultimate conspiracy theorist, and I had my friend Russ who was telling me all this crazy stuff. And I'm thinking, no, this can't be happening. So that gave me a lot of anxiety, and but somehow determination took over. And I tell the cop the next morning, there was a bunch of cops there, and I'm like, my dad's a New York City cop, a former cop. I need to get home. My daughter's sick. I mean, I made up all these stories. I said, I got to get home. And I'm not kidding you. If you've been to Mandalay Bay, it's only a mile from the airport. This guy here got a police escort at like 7:30 a.m. from the Mandalay Bay when nobody could leave the casino, but me. I had to get out of there, and because it was starting to the tram, everything else was kind of, and I also wanted to get out of the whole thing, and I did. I got the police escort to a mile and a half or whatever it was. It was the most surreal scene you could ever imagine. And I got to the golf, and you know what? I couldn't play. You think I could play golf? I can't play good as it is. Now I got to play golf under what I just witnessed. It was not happening, but I was on a golf cart. Hanging out with Paula Tricky. She was an actress who was in Pacific Blue and a few other shows, and just was glad to be out of there. But the experience defined me. I said, and now I've lived this kind of crazy, and it didn't hit me 9/11 in Vegas until like 4 days later. I'm back home. I'm with Johnny Bench, baseball player. We're in Charlotte at an event he was speaking at. I helped bring him there. And I was telling Johnny the story, and he was like, well, you were 9/11. And I said, yeah. And then that's when it kind of Fox News overheard it. And all of a sudden I'm doing a Fox News interview, and it went viral, ABC News. And now I'm like the poster child, which I didn't want to be poster child for 9/11 in Vegas, and it's national news. And but I'll tell you what, I kind of took the platform and said, if we can help people, help fundraise for Las Vegas victims, they set up a GoFundMe account, and people liked the story. I kept plugging that. And I said, there's something cool that I can at least use this platform to help others, and got connected to some support groups out there. Las Vegas was different because, a lot of people didn't live in Vegas. A lot of people visiting were out of town. So the people that are all over the country that were at that concert, where 9/11 is more, geographically, most people were from New York if you worked in the World Trade Center, and if you were in the Pentagon, you were in DC. For people that were in Vegas that night, very small people, small group percentage lived there. Everybody else was somewhere else. So it was kind of hard for people to connect, and kind of happy that, like my story, we kind of brought some people together through some of these groups. And, even a few years later, when Parkland happened, I got to meet Fred Gutenberg. He was lost his brother from the 9/11 dust. That's where I first knew of Fred's story. We also lost his daughter, Jamie, in Parkland. You know Fred's story. He is a big activist. He's been after obviously the gun violence issue, NRA. He's been lobbying for, and he's going to be on my podcast next month. And he's got an incredible story, Fred, and pleased to know him through this. Unfortunately, I didn't want to meet him that way, but we went down to Parkland, spoke to the survivors and the kids in that shooting. And again, I don't ever impart, here's how you heal, because everybody heals differently. What I do to heal and what somebody else does, you got to find your own path. There's no one size fits all. But I try to add some perspective and say there is no closure. There's some days I wake up and I'm in just a bad place, bad funk. PTSD, I struggle with it. I do. There's times where I really feel like I can't work. I'm going through that right now, actually. It's hard to concentrate on my job. I have sometimes 9/11 20th anniversaries coming up this year. A lot of triggers, and a lot of people have that. And but I'm, I have also by helping out and doing charity work, being out here this week. I was at Radio Row all day talking about some of the work I do. Actually boxing this guy. I don't know if Ryan shared with you that I'm boxing this guy named Gerry Cooney, who is this legend that fought Larry Holmes and George Foreman, Spinks back in the 80s. And Gerry and I are good friends, and I'm getting in the ring with Gerry in 4 months to raise money for his charity. And it's given me a purpose, a reason to get in the gym, lose some weight and look good, and try to get this almost 50-year-old guy to get out there and do something pretty special and raise money for underprivileged kids. So that's connects. I know there's a lot of pieces there, but
yeah, exactly. And the awareness is there. It's a working progress, right? Because we always recognize that we have those little crutches that kind of keep us back, but at the same token, the outlet, the outpouring, the evangelistic approach, if you will, or the philanthropic types of things that you do are certainly helping you internally, and maybe not so much as a trigger when it's all said and done. And perhaps this is the outlet to actually unblock those otherwise hard to do things that are daily, that would have been normal for you on a normal day, outside of what happened then, as well as the Las Vegas shooting. So clearly you're doing something right, not only for yourself, but I think other people are. Lots of people are benefiting from it. Clearly, you're going in 3 rounds with Gerry. That's got to be. You got to be in shape for that one. It just sounds.
We got to be crazy up here, one or the other. But no, but I mean, it's a bucket list. I was privileged 5 years ago. I always want to be a New York Yankee. I got to do some work with the team, meet all these guys, but getting to play in an old timers day game. Here I was doing some work to help support an old Yankee legend named Brian Doyle. He's got Parkinson's, right? And Brian was, we came up with an event, Old Timers Day in Scranton, PA, where the AAA team is. It was after the Old Timers Day in New York. And I was just there trying to help and fundraise, connect the dots. I know Michael J. Fox Foundation. And so let me bring my uniform. Maybe one of these old guys like Chris Chambliss or Roy White will need a pinch runner. That's all I wanted to do, was maybe get in the game for a minute or just have the uniform on. And lo and behold, I get there's Father's Day 2015. I got my girls there, and my girls really, even though I did a lot of these Yankee fantasy camps, they never see me really play. And they were there, and second inning, Reggie Jackson's on the bench in my dugout. I mean, I'm playing with Reggie Jackson, Mickey Rivers, all these guys, legends that, it's one thing to be in a fantasy camp, be in a real game. It's like, this isn't happening. But Gene Michael was 76 years old at the time. God rest his soul. He passed away a couple of years ago. Stick was to get up against a guy named Jeff Nelson, 6'8", big guy, throws hard. And Stick looked at me. He's like, Mike, grab a bat. So I had said, well, it was Mickey Rivers' bat, and it was Reggie's bat. Reggie's bat a little bigger. I grabbed Reggie's bat. I didn't think I was going to get in the game to hit. So I didn't even have batting gloves. I didn't even put a helmet on. Look at the clip. I'll share with you later. I don't have a helmet on. I just ran to home plate. I'm like, I got my chance to bat, and I don't have a chance to get nervous. And I got to a 2-2 count. I fouled off a couple pitches against Nelly, and he can still zip it. Even in old times, that he doesn't know how to throw slow because he can't get it over the plate unless he's throwing with some kind of velocity. And he explained it to me. I was kind of wondering why guys throwing, for me, 70, 75 miles an hour is a little fast, but I know for an average major leaguer, not so much. But
Right.
and I tell you, Rudy, I thought I hit it out of the park. I got all of it, but all of it for me and versus a major leaguer, it was a nice hit. It was it dropped in there, and it was one of those that like a major league ballpark, maybe in a minor league park or something else would have been a little further, but still bucket list memory. Got to play 6 innings in the field, and I played deep in right field. I didn't want anything going over my head, so I was like, okay, I'm going to play the deepest on anybody so that nothing's going to go over my head. So Roy White and Chris Chambliss, they're pretty up there in age. They're like, why are you playing so deep on us? I'm like, well, that's because I don't want to drop the ball. So I made one catch out there, but other than that, nothing was going to go over my head. So, but I had that experience, and that was a reward for all the stuff I've done. I think over the charitable work, I believe there is always good karma, that happens when you do good things, and that was a reward. And I still do a lot of stuff with the Yankees, but I'll always be grateful for Ray Negron. He was a Yankee bat boy in the 70s. George Steinbrenner plucked him off the streets when Ray was doing graffiti and gave him a job at the Yankees, took him out of the gutter, gave him a job, and now Ray is with Reggie and all the Thurman Munson. He's got an incredible story. He's been an inspiration to me, and Ray's probably my closest contact with the Yankees, and he's got me into a lot of different cool things over the years. Been blessed to know Frankie Valli through him, and just music legends and people that Ray got to meet as a bat boy, and he's now like his own. And when you see that, you see how you could take an opportunity and make it into something really big. And that's what I feel like my mission is and now with my little podcast I do with my kids, my girls, especially my daughter Kellie, who's special needs. We're giving her a platform to kind of take her gift. She's got abilities beyond disabilities. She's 18 and she's now seeing what she can do to help others. It's not about her. It's about how she can help other kids with special needs. And she's doing some great things out there. And we'll have like people like Johnny Damon come on the show, who's so great with her, and Nick Swisher. But it's not about the celebrities. It's about the special needs stories that kids. We have stories on our show about a Down syndrome kid who has an ice cream shop in Alabama. He goes around the country and has his mobile ice cream, makes them incredible. Or actually, Kellie, my daughter, works for a kid named Gabby, who's fundraising for a coffee shop so she can live her dream and have her own coffee shop. And there's so many stories like that out there, and focusing on special kids and adults that are making some really cool things with and just was on a podcast earlier today at Radio Row. This kid, Ben's 22. He has autism, and he got to carry the Super Bowl trophy with the Philadelphia Eagles when they won a couple of years ago. He was, showing me, he was on Ellen DeGeneres on her show, just taking his, obviously, what he's doing and making something really cool out of it. And that's what I want for my daughter, is the life skills. You can teach her academics and she can get through high school and college, but life skills, it takes a long time for many kids to develop that, especially in a virtual setting like we've all been in for the last 10 months. So the show is it's called Dads and Daughters Show, and we do it on Facebook Live, and it's on YouTube and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's really giving us a platform and doing something as a dad-daughter kind of thing. Have both my girls, my younger one, you'll see her in the back behind me. She's on her phone the whole time. She doesn't even make eye contact at the time. She doesn't even know the show's going on. I think she has the earbuds in her ear. I don't even think if I asked her a question, she'd be like, what? But, it's even the dog gets in the action. We have the dog on the show too, but the dog doesn't know what's going on. But the purpose of it is to show that dad-daughter bond. And it's pretty special thing. I look back years from now, look back at those memories. We celebrated Jenna's 16th birthday this past Sunday on air. I mean, it was kind of cool. We can't have a Sweet 16. So open my Sweet 16 vault to everybody, to all the viewers got to. So that's kind of like where, life is a journey, and everything you do in life leads to something else. That's why I started with where I was in college, football, and how that going from Tampa back to New York, it puts me in the World Trade Center. Then years later, I'm doing this Tanked episode that I never really got to even be on except for a cameo. and I end up in Las Vegas. So there's always a reason for, without getting religious on anybody or spiritual, but I do believe God puts you in a place where you're meant to kind of have a call for action. So
Sure. Yeah. And sometimes that call for action can be skewed. A lot of people can misconstrue that as saying, well, no, it's just a fake, it's just a front, it's all about him. No, it isn't. And it shouldn't be even remotely looked at that way by anyone. Why? Because other people are benefiting from this. You may not see it in your everyday life, but where you see it is in the results. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And all these young girls, young men who are actually not able to, you were talking about George Steinberg pulled this bad boy out of next to like homelessness and poverty. So you know what? You got a job. I mean, I'm not New York. I can pull up the New York accent if you want, but hey, you got a job, all right. So now he's working. So now he's able to basically give back to those and pay it forward, right? Because it's not about just necessarily paying it back; it's paying it forward to those that have came before him, that will maybe come after him. But how does that even happen, right? It happens with mentality. It happens with philanthropy. It happens with the right mindset, doing things for the right reasons for the right people. And I've said this, I don't know how many times on the podcast. You mentioned you're talking about Reggie Jackson. My dad used to cut his hair in my dad's salon. And whenever Reggie needed a haircut, my dad would go there to travel. That was when he was with the California Angels. At least that's what they called him back then in the 80s. So he would give my dad box tickets. Hey, take your family, box food and the whole 9 yards. I was a kid. How did I know, who, when, how, and why? But the more important thing was what was that Reggie decided to pay it forward. A lot of people paid it forward just like he did in the ways that he did. And sometimes it doesn't have to be in that way. It could be in some other dynamic way, like what you're doing. I mean, you're a banking consultant, for crying out loud. Does anybody ever think that a banking consultant would give a rat's about somebody else who's fighting some challenge in some fashion, some form, some way? Not predominantly, but you happen to be the exception and the rule kind of rolled up all into one. At least that's my perspective. Mike Dempsey joins me here. I'm Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. You've worked with, I mean, tons of people. Doc Gooden, Vinny Pazanza. He's obviously going to be in your corner, so clearly you know him very well.
He better be my corner.
Like,
I may need him as a stunt double.
You got this. Just go in and knock him out. No, you get 3 rounds with this guy with Gerry. I mean, come on. It sounds like a dream come true. To be honest with you, I would never go toe to toe with anybody by the name of George Foreman. I'm just letting you know. That's just not going to happen. But you do so many great things, and you dedicate a lot of time. How does family time differentiate, or how do you incorporate that family time with working and doing your banking consultancy? I mean, how does it?
It's hard. I try to get my girls involved now. That's what I really try to do over the years now. My younger daughter has no interest in sports or any of those kind of events, but I've taken her to some of the boxing fundraisers, and I'll do as much as I can involve my girls in it. Kellie, my older one, is a little easier to take to these events. She has an interest in it, but my younger one is not as thrilled, but it's the same time I'm trying to get them involved in things. And then when they have cheerleading, that's their passion. I'm there for every cheerleading competition, and I try to do what I can to support what they're doing and give them the opportunities. And I have my interest, they have their interest, and just try to elevate it so that they feel part of what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm part of what they're doing. So I give them those chances and opportunities. And my older daughter, like I said, my 18-year-old, she's obsessed with cheerleading. I mean, she lives this stuff just like I do with baseball and football. And she'll be on the phone all day looking at cheerleading competitions. And you know what? That's good. I mean, it's great to have a passion.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I tell her, it's not a job. If you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And I feel like with my job, like nobody knows I'm a banking consultant. Everybody says, oh, you hang out with celebrities. Oh, no, I don't hang out. These people are people that I've gotten to know because there's no hustle in the relationship. I'm not an agent. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to, hey, if I get you a gig or some kind of event, I don't want to cut it. You take that, donate it to your foundation. I don't need that money. I don't need, and that's why I think that built up trust and goodwill that way. And that's why I think some of these relationships I've had for 10, 15, 20 years, people who see it from the outside may judge it however they want. I don't really care. At some point in life, as you get older, you're like, I don't really personalize or worry about what other people think anymore. I know that I'm doing good. And that's going to be my core team. And, the show I've done, the podcast, is really amazing because I think a lot of people who have been supporting for years, they've reciprocated. They've joined my show. They support what I'm doing. When I call them up, hey, I need a guest last minute. You know how it is. And yet your real friend, their own self agendas, you don't hear from them, and that's fine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of broken components in regards to what people think and their interpretation of what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, I started doing what I was doing so I can help athletes, so I can help give them a podium and explain to teams why they deserve a shot to get to the next level. It's not just about because I have a good hairline. Wait, I don't have a good hairline. I don't have any hair. But these guys, what have I done? Where have I been? What types of fights? What are the nuances of what it takes to get to the next level? And a lot of that has to do with the way that they grew up, what they seen, what they recognized as being pitfalls, as being negatives, to stay away from those types of things. Some guys just can't help themselves and some guys can't. Some guys were born and raised to know the difference between the two, and others just fall by the wayside. Those are the one people that need the help the most, outside of the ones that are clearly walking that path. They're walking the walk and they're talking the talk to get into where we're at right now, playing in, a couple years later, now in the Super Bowl 55 between Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, the young and the old, the time winner and the one-time winner going for number two. I mean, you got to love the scenario. And each one of them grew up very, very differently. They grew up in very different places, different environments, but yet they find themselves in this very tight knit circle, which is Super Bowl 55 in Tampa. Those guys are the ones who really pay it forward. What kind of work have you done with either Patrick or Tom Brady up to this point?
Patrick, I'll start with Patrick. Pat's dad played for the Twins and the Mets. So I knew Pat Mahomes, the pitcher. And I knew the kid when he was young. I said, man, I feel old when I see these kids that are now adults and they're Super Bowl MVPs. I said, I'm really aging myself here when I see that. But I got to know Patrick really the last couple of years through Lee Steinberg, super agent. He just had his virtual party tonight. It's virtual this year, his annual Super Bowl party. Lee is amazing. His story is himself, super agent that represented Troy Aikman, Steve Young, and hit rock bottom, alcohol issues, and now he's made this amazing comeback. And really, Patrick was the first guy that he saw. He kind of been invested in him. And Patrick has now turned out. And I remember at the time telling me this kid is going to be the quarterback. And I'm like, nah, there was so many other top-rated quarterbacks ahead of him that got picked, right? And it's amazing to see his development, his maturity, the stuff he does to support philanthropy as well. He was raised by his family. It's his upbringing, and that's something. And I was telling a reporter today, Tom Brady, Tom does a lot of things that he doesn't advertise. He writes checks to charities that he doesn't have to broadcast it. He is that kind of person. And when you see that side of Tom Brady, you may dislike him because he beat your team. And if hey, I'm a Jet fan. I mean, he killed us every year, but you can't take the caliber of a player that Tom Brady is. And he does a lot of stuff for a lot of different charities and organizations. He's got a lot of respect within the people who really know him. And Tom is like me. People will snicker at him. Oh, Tom is not a selfish person. He's got a great heart. So, it's a win-win for this Super Bowl. I'm kind of more torn toward Tampa, but I want to see Mahomes have 400 yards and have an MVP performance. So if it's like 31-28 Tampa, I'm happy. But either way, I think both guys are winners and they're doing great things with their career. Only disappointment for me was that Rob Gronkowski has the best Super Bowl party usually of the week. He has his Gronk Beach Bash, and we had a big one in Miami last year. And I was looking forward. I know COVID was going to probably kill it, but I was still hopeful that we would somehow pull out a Gronk party. Maybe LA next year, he'll do it out there. You are, we'll see it. But Gronk is a guy and kind of missed out. This year, a lot of the parties were unfortunately canceled, and Coach Ditka is my favorite party of the year. Ditka and Jaworski, the cigar party. It might have been, Ditka lives in Florida, and this was an easy place for him to get to, but obviously the party was canceled, and don't know if he can make the trip to Los Angeles next year. So we had such great parties with Coach over the years. One of my all-time favorite people to be around. So football, Coach Ditka; baseball, Yogi Berra was like a grandfather to me. I've had the privilege of having like two amazing individuals that have been like really mentors. And Yogi literally was a mentor, even with his yogiisms. That man was such a role model for me and did a lot. I was privileged when Yogi couldn't play golf anymore. I'd go to his golf outing and I suck at golf. So I'd sit on the porch and I'd hear his stories and listen to this man tell me things that I will always remember, the wisdom within what Yogi would say. And he had some very funny things, as you know, but man, he was a barrel of laughs. And Coach Ditka, in his own crotchety way, man, he is such a good-hearted guy as well. And what he does for retired NFL players, even people like me that have really had a cup of coffee. Like I said, I had a really brief thing with the league, and his organizations helped me because I had a traumatic head injury, and his organization helps concussion-related injuries and other stuff, helps veterans, PTSD. I've had a lot of help through Gridiron Greats, a great charity that Coach Ditka founded to help NFL players, veterans, and I fell in that category, thankfully. So you got to find the helpers. And,
Yep.
The guy I'm having on my show in a couple of weeks, Fred Gutenberg, he talks a lot about that in his new book, Find Those Helpers, then those people can help you, and you got to pay it forward and not be that helper to somebody else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're mentioning Coach Ditka. I had Coach on my show, and once we got through all the football, he didn't want to talk about broadcasting. He did not want. He was denying me any answers to any questions I had about broadcasting because it's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to still coach in some manner, some capacity. But Coach, very colorful. You said crotchety. That's probably an understatement. But he's a fantastic guy. Make no mistake. He certainly teaches a lot of people about a lot of different things, and he's well traveled. He's been around, been there, done that. It is a shame that COVID has kind of dampened the Super Bowl a little bit to the extent of not seeing your regular NFL greats. Speaking of NFL greats, you definitely know a lot of them. A lot of guys. Me and Cam Hayward. His family does a lot of great things for the city of Pittsburgh.
Dad was Ironhead. His dad was a legend.
Yeah, his dad's a legend. I think that's between him and his mom's really where he gets his philanthropy from and his philanthropic mentality. And guys like Jerome Bettis, the bus. I mean, he has a bus in Detroit, he has a bus in Pittsburgh, and he goes around on those buses to help kids free of cost. It's an amazing experience. This is an amazing person. And so many things remind me of, if you're going to be the athlete that's receiving a multi-million-dollar award, right? 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. Is it going to hurt you to spend $1 million to help other people? Not necessarily. I would probably suspect that each NFL organization has players that put themselves in positions. You have this charity, this charity, this charity, this charity, pick one. And they're committed to that one. I'm just guessing. I don't know for a fact. I'm not in a locker room. I'm not part of an organization. But if I was part of that organization, or at least owned one, I would make sure that these guys picked a charity to give back to during their time, during their tenure, if you will. Will Allen still does it for the Steelers. Obviously Heinz Ward opened up a restaurant there. Jerome Bettis has a restaurant open there. I mean, it's just kind of interesting how these guys come full circle, recognizing that they put themselves in very vicarious situations, big or small, growing up, but then have somebody help them along the way in some manner, some capacity. So that way, by the time they're able to retire themselves, now they're able to give back to everybody else. And that is the best part about all of it. It's coming full circle, being humble as a part of what you do and how you do it. You're a very humble person. Mike Dempsey joins me here on the Rude Dog Show. I'm Rudy Reyes. You already know me by now, but you should get to know Mike Dempsey. The guy is on point, top notch, gives back to others like it's no one's business. I've never met a guy like him. I probably will never meet another guy like him. But if you're in LA, I'll be in LA too. I'm only 5 hours from it. So
that's great.
I look forward to any type of Super Bowl events that are going on over there. I can assure you that. So you were talking about, you were picking a winner between Buccaneers or the Chiefs. Do you have a favorite player on either one of those teams, or are you kind of trying to stay in the neutrality zone?
Try to stay in the neutrality zone, but I'm obviously affiliated more for Tampa. I mean, God, I lived down here for 4 years. I mean, going back even today and yesterday when I got into town, it's just, I go down memory lane when I think about those, it's where I started. Like, they say humble beginnings. I mean, I remember when where I was back in 95, 96. And it's like, God, 24, 25 years later. And the organization, really, the city deserves this moment to have the team, their team, they're hosting it. And you know what, there's just not a lot of revenue coming into the city, quite frankly. It's I wouldn't say it's dead down here, but it's not what I would have expected. I was here 20 years ago for the Ravens and the Giants. It was 34-7. The Giants beat the Ravens. It was in Tampa. And I remember that was only like 6 years after I had my brief, and I had the privilege of knowing Leroy Selman. He was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers legend. He was the USF athletic director at the time, University of South Florida, and I got a sideline, kind of pass, and I was able to have the most amazing Super Bowl experience I could ever have. And for that privilege, just amazing. When you come back full circle, it's like, this is my home away from home. And so I have a lot of Kansas City connections, and I'm happy for the organization. A lot of my friends have played. Nick Lowry, Mark Collins, Christian Okoye, a lot of great guys have come through the organization. Last year, I was so happy to see Patrick get there. But, I said, I hope he has a great game. But I do hope Tampa does pull it out, because it's just great for the city. I think it's a win-win. Can't lose. There's no losers on Sunday.
Right. Well, there mean no losers on Sunday, but I can tell you this much: one's going home empty-handed, and the other one's going to stay home empty-handed. So, take your pick. I'm on the fence here, only for the simple fact that I've seen Patrick Mahomes destroy defenses with the types of impromptu play that he's exhibited for the last almost nearly 2 seasons. But at the same token, you can't deny the current GOAT. Not past GOATs, the current GOAT and Tom Brady already winning.
Never count him out.
Won his six rings. I mean, how do you fit 6 rings? It must be kind of tough moving your fingers, but he's on to number 7. So you really can't blame him for winning that as well. Mike Dempsey joins me here on the Rude Dog Show. Mike, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But last but not least, my twin brother is a huge Kansas City fan. So I'm going to have to pick the Buccaneers to win only despite that. So
well, let's do this next year. I want to do this show with you next year in Los Angeles, and we're going to do it.
We will do it. We will
cool party, and we're going to have some cool guests, and it's going to be a fun time out there.
Absolutely.
LA, my buddy Anthony Michael Hall, the actor, he's out there. One of my good friends, and Dean Cain, you'll see him next year. He's another good guy. Played for the Buffalo Bills, and he was an actor. And we're gonna have a great time next year. I'm savoring this week still, and then we'll focus on next year in Los Angeles. Exactly. But let's just hope and pray there'll be some normalcy, and we can get back. Everybody's vaccinated and safe and healthy, and let's have a great game.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. Mike Dempsey joins me here on the Rude Dog Show. I am honored. This guy is fantastic. If you don't know him, go look him up. Great guy to talk to, great guy to know. And of course, somebody who just gives just to those people who need the help, who need the assistance. I encourage you, if you can give back, do it. And that goes for anybody listening, anybody watching, because the one that's going to feel it the most is you, when you're able to sleep at night knowing that you helped change somebody's life. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. Mike Dempsey. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We'll do it again.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, brother.